afternoon. My name is Radhe and today I'll be discussing my research on artificial intelligence in special education, and specifically how it impacts the overall performance of students with disabilities. So, to set the stage, according to the U.S. Department of State, artificial intelligence is defined as a machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or other corresponding outputs based on user inputs. Back in 1950, a British mathematician by the name of Alan Turing created the concept of artificial intelligence, and upon further research, he found that computer-based systems have the ability of producing the same outputs as human intelligence can. So in 1950, he created the Turing test, which was basically made to analyze the correlation between the two. So from that point on, artificial intelligence has only been growing and will continue to grow in the future, and its overall implementation can be seen through basically anything. Our phones have it, our computers have it, Siri and Alexa are also AI-based, as well as your simple internet searches. When you search something on the internet, it gives you results based on the words and phrases that you searched, and that is due to AI algorithms within your technological device. So now I want to talk about my literature review and all of the research that I conducted to get to my gap, as well as my research question. When I was first conducting my literature review, I wanted to look into AI specifically in special education, but as I researched more further and found sources and case studies, I found that it was more so oriented on the impacts that AI has on students without disabilities rather than students who do. And I was only able to find one piece of evidence or research that was more so dedicated towards those who have a disability. So what I found was there are numerous technological systems with AI backgrounds, one being adaptive learning systems. And they're basically adaptive learning platforms with portal and learning management systems to facilitate individualized learning experiences based on one's unique abilities and needs. And this comes with 3 different subcategories, including content, sequencing, and assessment. And content basically provides the users with contextual feedback based on their inputs. Sequencing collects those inputs and outputs and basically analyzes and then alters their content to fit their learning needs. And lastly, assessment takes into account the responses to previous questions answered by users and then facilitates new questions for it to fit their abilities. There's also speech-to-text recognition, which is basically the ability of a computer to identify and respond to sounds produced in human speech. And an example of this is seen on Google Docs, where once you talk into the microphone of a technological device, it'll type out what you said. Also, there's intelligent tutoring systems, which are basically AI-driven learning assistants that can provide personalized instruction, real-time feedback, as well as adaptive learning experiences without the need of an actual human teacher. There's also natural language processing, which is a very big technological aspect, especially nowadays, and is used very commonly throughout our communities. And it's basically a subfield of artificial intelligence that's driven by machine learning, which is also another subcategory of AI, and it basically acts as communication between the technological device that it is installed on as well as the user, which is an actual human. And certain examples of this include ChatGPT and Siri. So the one piece of research that I found that was more so associated with AI being adapted into something for those who are disabled was JAWS Screen Reader. JAWS stands for Job Access with Speech, and it's basically an assistive technology that incorporates Braille to mimic a keyboard and a mouse for those who are visually impaired to be able to have a look into what technological devices are and to be able to use them. Another thing that I found was as AI continues to grow and certain platforms continue to grow, there's also a very big aspect of errors that can be made between updates that come out every now and then. And due to those errors can be a very big depreciation in trustworthiness. And due to this, it allowed me to conclude that teachers may be scared to implement this into their educational curriculums due to the fact they might not be able to give accurate data to education, which then it defeats the purpose to do so. So that's where I found my gap. I found my gap in there being very limited research for assistive technology when it comes to having something for those students who are disabled in school settings. And therefore, I wanted to look more so into that aspect. And that brings me to my research question, which is how how does the integration of artificial intelligence in special education impact the overall performance of students with disabilities in school settings? So, the research approach that I decided to employ was a survey-based approach, which is basically where the collection of data from a sample of individuals through their responses to questions, and it has a very specific audience that is required. I collected both qualitative and quantitative data to understand the specifics of how special education teachers implement AI into their curriculums and how it affects the trajectory of student performance as a whole. So here is the blurb that pops up when you first open my survey, and it basically talks about who I am. The AP Capstone program shows why I'm conducting this survey and why the teachers or the respondents of this survey should fill it out. So throughout my survey, I wanted to use a variety of different questions to make sure that I got the most generalized aspects covered, as well as more in-depth experiences that the teachers have had, as well as just understanding a more generalizable term. So I decided to include multiple choice questions, open-ended questions, and Likert scale questions. My participants were special education staff, specifically in the MBT schools district, and I got about 6 respondents to respond to my survey. So once I got my responses back, I picked out some key responses and I analyzed those in depth to understand how it really correlated to my question, as well as finding more research from my question. So the first question that I asked is, in your opinion, how do AI-driven tools such as educational apps or software impact students' academic performance in your classroom? And it was a Likert scale question, with 1 being not effective, 2, 5 being most effective. And all 6 respondents responded with a 3 or more, which allowed me to conclude that the teachers do believe that there is at least a mild chance that AI-driven tools have a positive impact on student performance, specifically their academic performance. Another question that I asked was, how do you think AI-driven platforms or tools influence the mental well-being of students in special education settings? The reason why I decided to ask this question is to understand the mental health aspect as well, because that is also a very big part of overall performance when it comes to students' educations. And most teachers responded with they believe that it's not negative or positive, it's more so neutral, while others said that it depends on the severity of the situation. Another question I asked is, which platforms do you use the most? And all 6 respondents responded with Magic School AI, which allowed me to conclude that the district has probably employed this specific platform into the abilities of the teachers to be able to use throughout their curriculums. Another question I asked is, how often do you use AI-based tools or programs in your classroom? And all 6 respondents responded with occasionally, showing that all of the responses that they provided to the other questions I asked were based on little to no use of AI in their curriculums or classrooms. And the last question that I picked out was, which area do you think AI helps students in special education the most? With all 6 respondents saying that it helped their students with their social skills as well as communication skills, and 1 teacher saying academic performance, which showed me that there is a positive correlation in some aspect of their overall performance being impacted. So from understanding that teachers have the ability to use this AI platform called Magic School AI, I wanted to see what depth they could use it to. So I decided to look into the regulation of AI in schools. And in the 2024 to 2025 Student Parent Handbook, on page 26, it states that the use of artificial intelligence applications is not permitted unless explicitly authorized by the teacher. And this basically allowed me to understand that teachers have some leniency when it comes to the usage of AI, while students don't. So if a teacher says that you could use a specific platform that has AI-based tools, then it could be allowed, but still this didn't give me enough information to determine whether or not they could. So I looked more into its research, and I found that according to edutopia.org, schools must ensure that any AI tools used in the classroom comply with FERPA regulations, particularly when sharing student data with third-party providers. And FERPA is basically a Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is a federal law. And from that, it allowed me to understand that Magic School AI most definitely fits under those regulations. So I looked into more of the platform itself, and I found that educators can use this to plan certain lessons, and students can have more personalized learning and more study tools, as well as just regular tools in general. So from that point on, I decided to look into what tools this platform really enhances, and I found that all of these tools were basically shown under the special education tab when it comes to teachers on a teacher's end. And this correlated back to what I found in my literature review. The Tutor Me with AI basically encapsulates the intelligent learning systems that I found before, which were AI-driven tutors. There's also places where they can learn about languages as well as learn step-by-step directions to any assignment that they upload. Also have other explanations given to them, which all correlate back to the adaptive learning experiences that I spoke about in my literature review as well. So now, certain limitations that I came across while conducting my research included time, response bias, network, and data analysis. Time and network go hand in hand because if I were given more time, I feel like I would have been able to gather more respondents on a wider scale and get more than just 6 respondents, and therefore allowed my data analysis to be very limited because only 6 respondents doesn't really imply the more so wider population. And due to a lack of usage of AI, there is also very big response bias when it comes to being able to determine my question. So from that, I concluded that many teachers do not use AI-driven software in their classrooms, or it's very rare, at least in this district. And there's also an increasing correlation between AI-driven technologies and student performance as seen through the survey, as well as my literature review. Schools should also begin enforcing AI-driven platforms for special education so that they can also get more out of the technological devices as the rest of the student body gets. Teachers should integrate various settings to create diversity in their classrooms, and there's also need for proper training to be able to use AI, especially in such a sensitive aspect of education, just so that the errors or trustworthiness depreciation can be covered and they're using it in the right way. And lastly, I think that a certain but simple AI tool should be standardized in special educational settings so that they can get a look into different technologies. Thank you.
What was one obstacle or challenge you encountered while implementing your research method, and how did you address it?
So one challenge that I encountered was being able to have a wide scale of a sample size to work with. The child study team at North Brunswick school districts is, at least for the high school, it is from 13 to 15, and not all of them were willing to complete the survey, or at least at the specific time. So that really caused a lot of changes to be added to my survey to have a more so outcome from a smaller group of people.
What might the real world implications or consequences be to your local school?
I feel like the real world implications could be adapting to more so a wide variety, or encouraging the staff to use certain platforms to the best of their ability so that they can get the most use out of what they are given. Especially with Magic School AI, it has a lot of different features specified for special education that can be used.
Okay. Which of your sources was the most influential, and in what way is that influence apparent in your final conclusion?
So one source that I came across was a specific webinar series that is listed as the 4th source. That allowed me to conclude that there is a very big gap in between what can be used and what cannot be used in terms of AI in special education, since it's such a sensitive topic, and that's what I feel like.
Okay. Other questions from the floor? All right, thank you very much.